let's go to this year's events. We go to
All
Mount
right.
Shasta to this event that Enrique is running,
Mm-hmm.
experiences with the non-ordinary. And you have a number of experiences, starting with the night before. Mark and I were at a bed and breakfast down at the bottom of the mountain, and you were, I think, with Cameron and Pete, and you experienced some shaking. Like, can you go through that? Start with Thursday night. What started with you in terms of experiences?
Yes, Thursday night we arrived early with Vahid, Dawn, Cameron, and Pete, and we decided to do a meditation before the event. So we all got together and did some meditations, and it seemed pretty uneventful. It was a nice meditation, and it was kind of a combined Rama / CE5 meditation. And then during it, I kind of felt a lot of vibrations in my body, and then under my feet, I could feel like soft waving and moving, like the ground was moving, almost like I could put my foot through it. And I had felt something similar last year when we were in front of the door portal. So then the next morning, I find out that Dawn, who was not meditating with us, she was in the tent sleeping. Well, not really sleeping, but she was in the tent. She said that she had felt the moving and shaking of the ground too, in a subtlety.
Hmm. Interesting.
Don't know what that means, but
Yeah, because I don't recall feeling anything, and I was sort of hoping, because I've seen a lot. I mean, it was on my bucket list to have a little tiny earthquake to actually feel what you people go through. So I didn't feel anything. Let's go to Friday. You mentioned the portal, the door portal. Can you explain to people what this is? Because we went there, I think it was about Friday at noon before the event actually started. And so, can you explain to people what the portal is, where it is, what this door thing is about, and what happened for you when you were there?
Well, I found out about the doorway last year, and it was located through a series of clues from many people combined together, little pieces of the puzzle brought together. And it's over by, in the Shasta area, McLeod, near McLeod, Middle Falls. And it's an actual, along a cliffside above the waterfall, there is an actual stone doorway that's quite large. I don't know what it is, maybe 6 feet tall at least, and wide. It looks like an ancient door, literally. And this is called the door portal. And when we were there last year, we felt incredible vibrations from it when we started chanting, raising our vibrations. It somehow seemed to activate the door, giving us all kinds of experiences with some people actually leaving their bodies in consciousness and going inside the door and having incredible experiences of mountain lakes and beautiful scenes inside. And I too went inside, but I didn't see anything, like nature. I went into a white room with a stone table and ended up talking to who was a member, a representative of the White Brotherhood. He was wearing a white robe, white hair. So what this door is even though it's a physical door, the whole idea for us to learn from this door is that this door represents our hearts, not our physical hearts, but our ethereal hearts. So entering this door the key to entering the door is with our hearts. We activate our hearts and we enter this door. And this year I got the rest of the message of entering the door, where you activate your heart and you enter it. And instead of entering the physical door, which you are in a way, yes, astrally or out of body experience or in consciousness, it is actually representative of the doorway to their hearts as well. The non-human beings inside the mountain or anywhere, it is entering their hearts. And that is the key to communication with these extraterrestrials, higher vibrating beings that are very, very benevolent.
You had an event last year and an event this year. correct?
Yes, yes. And both years we went to the door and raised our vibrations so that we could have these doorway experiences at the door portal.
And so this year you saw the gown, the white figure, and somebody
Yes.
else saw the white figure, correct?
Yes, I believe that was Maddie. And it's funny because we had not been talking and I described the same exact being that she later described.
Yeah.
Looked the same.
Yeah, interesting.
It's like, how does that happen?
Yeah, there seemed to be, that's why I was mentioning before, I didn't think anything was going on until there was that sharing circle on the morning, Saturday morning, where everybody started talking about this, and it was like it was almost like certain people were tapped in or they had broken in. It wasn't like everybody had the experience, but certain people, and I remember that similarity where people were picking this up. So does that link into what would happen later in terms of the experience you had at the door?
Are we talking last year or this year?
This year, in terms of.
Yes, because everything's connected. Everything is an ongoing thing. You can't just take one experience and say that's it. That experience, if you look at the wider picture, actually was connected to the last experience, and it's just adding on to each experience.
So make the connection between last year's experience and this year's experience again, in terms of.
So last year it was all about discovering, almost like an adventure, this stone doorway that was so exciting and intriguing. And then meditating in front of the doorway, people were actually having experiences of out of body experiences going inside the mountain through this doorway. So linked to this year is it was a continuation where people were entering the doorway, still having these incredible experiences and visions and meeting some of the people, non-human people in the mountain. But how it linked and changed this year was that we are in a 3D world, okay? But they are not. And to communicate with them, you need to rise up into a higher dimension of thinking, a higher state of consciousness where they are. So you're not entering the physical door because that's 3D. You're entering the doorway, which is the heart. The doorway is the heart. It is hard to explain, except that when I entered the doorway this year, instead of expecting to feel my body going through the door physically, it turned white and crystally, and I entered right into this being's own heart. So it was heart to heart.
Wow.
And that gave me access to the other hearts in the mountain.
Fascinating. So we go from there to we do the exercise which Enrique was talking about, increasing the sort of the energy in your body, which to me was pain, and we do all that, and then we go to the caves, and I believe you had an experience at the caves as well. You took a photo. Can you tell what happens with you at the cave?
Yeah, well, when I first got to the cave, I'm a little empathic. So when I got to the cave, I felt a lot of past, like not just yesterday, but like hundreds of years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, I felt a lot of bad energy there that really disturbed me. It was painful energy where painful things happened to people there. I don't know where, I don't know the history of the Pluto caves, but it hit me so hard that I started tearing up and almost wanted to just leave. I couldn't handle it. But, I did stay, and I thought, well, I'll just raise my vibration and then I'll be able to handle it, which I did. And then when we were farther in the cave, we started chanting and stuff in the cave to raise our vibrations, and a meditation that Enrique was guiding us through. I saw with my third eye a vision of like a man ancient indigenous man, and he was a spirit person, and he seemed to be approaching our group and looked really curious about what we were doing. His vibration felt very low, but he was just very curious and was watching us. And then later we went back to the it's a lava tube, and there are parts in the top where it's broken out with rock, and so it's like an air hole, an air vent straight up. And there's light shining through it, and we were all there. And I was taking pictures of somebody at the top. I was taking a picture of Jay at the top. And as I was taking the picture, I saw like a quick streak go across my lens, and I thought, wait, what the heck is that? Later, I looked at the photo, and the photo had picked up an oddly reddish color rainbow. And then I started zooming in. There were circles all over. And zooming into one part was the image of an old man's head with the long hair and a beard. And it looks pretty detailed.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Has anybody done any analysis? I know you put it out on Facebook for people to analyze. Is anybody taking you up on that?
Marcel is going to get of it, and he'll take a look at it. I think he has some camera experience.
Beautiful. So what happens next? We go into Saturday evening, which is usually the big night in these Rama events, and we're doing the oming, we're raising the vibration, and then the group splits up. So which of the groups are you in at that point?
I stayed at the camp. And the reason I stayed at the camp was because earlier that day, our entire group went to the doorway, the rock doorway I was telling you about at McLeod. And during that time, I received a telepathic message from one of these peoples in the white robe. And he told me to not, and this is before we even really knew where we were going that night, but he said, do not go on the mountain with Enrique. He said to stay at camp.
Wow.
He also told me that in my tent, I would receive a healing, which I didn't really say to anybody. I just kind of told him, and he also said that it happened at midnight with the group, which I believe it did. You'd have to check with someone else on that. Yeah. On the mountain, I believe something happened around midnight.
Yes.
But I told Enrique this information, but I didn't tell him I was having a healing in my tent. I just said, oh, and there's something about a healing going on. And that's all I told him. Wow. So when Enrique's group came off the mountain, I was in my tent, and I couldn't see, and they must have come off the mountain and back to camp around 2:45 a.m. And I think I turned in around 12:30 or 1, but I never fell asleep. I was having trouble sleeping. I was really cold because I had hypothermia the night before. And they came back, and I heard them come in with their trucks or their cars. And then I started to hear someone chanting Om, a group chanting Om softly in the back. It got louder and louder. Turned out it was Enrique's group, and he directed them to send out healing vibrations to all the sleeping people in the camp, just to help them. I was in my tent, and as soon as the chanting started, I started to tingle all over, and my body was paralyzed. I was frozen. I could not move a muscle. And then the strangest thing happened after that was my mind was paralyzed. There was no thought. It was completely paralyzed. If you can imagine just looking around and there's no thought, it completely gone. And my whole body was vibrating. There was vibrations going up and down my spine. And I could not even think anything of it. I was just the observer of my own body. Right. And with it, I believe I received a download, because I came with the understanding that the healing that I received, most people think of healings as physical, and I had always thought of healings as physical, but the healing I got was a mental healing as well as a physical healing, because after they stopped chanting, my body suddenly became unparalyzed. I warmed up, like, where did this heat come from? And I slept like a baby. I mean, I didn't wake up. It was the most peaceful sleep I had up on the mountain that night. So yes, I was healed with my hypothermia, but was also healed mentally. And the message that I got from that experience, because you can truly not learn unless you experience it personal. So learning, you can read a book, and you can get information and knowledge, but you're not learning unless you experience it. It has to be an experience. So this experience taught me that we need to still our minds. That let me just check here where I'm going here. Okay, so the learning is that you have to watch where your mind is at. That it's a simple case that when you're having problems, when you're down in the dumps, the solution is simple. Where is your mind? The minute you start feeling down or depressed, look at your mind and start instead thinking of the happiest time that you can remember last. That instantly brings up your mind, it brings up your vibration. And why are the ETs teaching us this? Because if we change as an individual, if we're raising our individual vibrations, we're affecting those around us. We're not bringing them down. And that's a domino effect. So we are each responsible for our own moods. And that's how globally the ETs, these beings, are trying to teach us how to raise Earth's vibration, is through ourselves first.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned vibration. Were you in the circle ohming with us when we were trying to raise the vibration after everybody started to move around?
Yes, I was there.
Yeah. See, that's what people, that's one thing I learned, an important lesson was the crystal ceremony. And I can maybe get you quickly in a second to mention your initiation, your crystal initiation ceremony, because it comes up later in a story that you're going to tell. But in terms of that, I thought this was that the beings would pick the circle where the initiation took place, and actually it's the group that raises the vibration that creates the area where the circle ceremony takes place. And what happens is it gets raised, it's very high, the circle's ready to go, and then Enrique and a bunch of people get this message to go up to the mountain, and they all get up and they start moving around, and they're in trucks, and people are going to their tents and stuff, and all the ohming stops for maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, maybe longer.
and that whole circle dies off. And that's when I saw that they said the circle is dying off, and we got to start ohming again, that they've lost the circle. So there was no crystal ceremony this year because everybody was moving around, and that was a really inspiring to me lesson of how this thing works, that it actually is this ohming process that creates the energy, and not some being from the outside coming down to do it.
Well, I would say it's about a 50-50. They do their part and we must do our part.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that you were with us. Now let's go maybe just describe, because we're mentioning this initiation. Can you describe a little bit about your understanding of the ceremony and what happens when you receive your crystals?
Okay, this is talking about the cesium crystals, which is a Rama initiation. The cesium crystals are placed in your palms with all vibrations running high, and what they are is they are about 50% ethereal material and 50% cesium crystal. That makes it integratable into our bodies. So you're receiving the crystals, and for everybody, the crystals are basically, if you want to think, beamed into our palms. And then when they appear, they're pushed into our hearts, into our heart chakras. And then they form the triangles and break into it looks like the Star of David. It's the upside down and forward upright triangles. If you can imagine, like a Merkaba or a Star of David. And these are integrated into our bodies. And what they do is they help to enhance our natural abilities. Say your natural ability is intuition, it enhances that. If your natural ability is telepathy, it enhances that. It makes us a more sensitive antenna so that we can receive more messages. So when I received mine, they were small little whitish puddles. I had my eyes closed, but I had to pee. No, I wanted to see what was, because I could feel my hands burning, my palms burning. I go like, wait, I'm going to open my eyes. I'm going to see what this is. And, I'm the type of person that has to see something to believe it. So yeah, I'm going to open my eyes.
Yeah.
So they were like soft little puddles of white light. and they burned like dry ice. And then when they were pushed into my chest, I went, oh, I mean, I could feel like the burning go into my chest, and it literally took my breath away for a couple. And the next morning I had all kinds of weird stuff going on. The next morning, this was 2 years ago. The next morning I was like in this trance where I had to go out into the middle of the field and meditate for 2 hours. I don't know why. I just needed to be there, and I meditated. And when I meditated with these new cesium crystals, it was like a cosmic consciousness. I was part of the meadow. I was part of the bees that keep buzzing around my ears. I was part of the butterflies. I was part of the trees. I was part of all the people that were moving about. It was incredible. For 2 hours I was out there. Well, everyone else was doing their stuff that morning. I was like in the middle. I mean, it was really odd for me because everybody else was like doing their thing, and I was like in the middle of the field just meditating away, like, oh man. So since then, the crystals has helped me tremendously, especially this year and last year. Learned that when I am close to where I need to be for ET contact, or if they are trying to connect with me, the cesium crystals in me, I feel that burning sensation and pull at my heart. So in a way, it's like a compass in different ways. And these are given to us to help us with contact.
Beautiful. Now we'll get tie into, there was an event happens at about 12 while you're having this healing experience up on the mountain, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning is this very dramatic experience with the Enrique and the three other women that experienced this. But you have another event. I believe the next event you have is Sunday. We all leave. Most people are leaving, and you have a couple of events. You have an experience in the forest, and then you have one that ties into the event that happens up on the mountain at 12, a little after 12 yesterday, the day before. So can you get into what happens Sunday afternoon? Most people are leaving. You're one of the last people to stay, and explain what happens then.
Okay, and then I'm supposed to stop at the cesium crystal part, right? The whole story.
Yeah, I wanted you to tie in the cesium crystal. You experienced that when you're in the experience in the forest, right?
Right, they were helpful. The cesium crystals is what led me to the correct spot for this.
Yeah, that's interesting. Explain how that works, or how you have, because most people don't realize, they think it's like a visual thing, and a lot of it is feeling, right? It's you're reading.
Oh my gosh, it's get out of the visual thing. It's all inside.
Yeah.
That's where all your extra senses are, inside, not visually. Yeah.
So explain this feeling and how you had this experience and how you moved around in terms of feeling what was actually going on.
Okay, so everybody had left the campsite except for, just the people that I had traveled with, and they were still packing. And I suddenly had the urge that I needed to go into the forest because it was time for me to have contact, which completely blew me away because I'm like, the event is over. Enrique's gone. The only thing left is us and these porta potties down the hill. That's all that's left. So I'm like, well, I think I'll go to the bathroom first, but the porta potties are way at the bottom of the hill, and I don't want to walk back up, and then they're going to wait for me because I'm taking too long to get ready to go, and which of course is ridiculous. They would have waited. And so I decided to follow my intuition, which had nothing to do with the crystals at this point, probably. I followed my intuition and just told them, I'm going to go for a walk in the forest. And the weirdest thing is like, no, don't go by yourself. Send somebody, whatever. So I just wandered off into the forest by myself. And I went a ways. I probably walked for 5-10 minutes. And then I thought, well, I'm supposed to have contact, but where am I supposed to be? So then I felt my chest start to activate, and I go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to use my cesium crystals. So what I did was I stood with my hands out and palms open, and I used my cesium crystals as a compass. And what I did was I did a 360. I slowly turned, and when I came to a certain point facing up the hill, the cesium crystals burned in my chest. So I thought, okay, well, maybe that's a coincidence. So I did the turn again slowly with my eyes closed. And again, facing in the same direction, the crystals activated again. So that was the direction I went. And so I started walking up the hill, and suddenly I felt a cold spot. And I had learned the night before from Enrique, sudden cold means that there's something going on in that area, or it's being prepped in that area for an encounter. So I just stood there going, I feel the crystals, I feel the cold, now what? And I happened to look straight down, and that's when I see this really beautiful, oh my gosh, it like played into it. It got to the child in me, where you have the fairy garden and all that, you know? And so I see this fairy path, and it was lined with flowers and plants, and I'm like, forget contact, I'm following this trail. So I'm going along the trail, and it came to a platform, and it was lined with flowers as well. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I need to stand on this and just, feel it. And that's when I stepped up on the platform, just a couple of feet, and then I turned and faced Mount Shasta, the big mountain in the snow. And that's when I felt the electricity in like a big current, tiny blah, blah, blah. It was like one big current in each foot going into my feet. And that's when I planted my feet. And I think you have the rest on tape, right? See, in one of these fairy tale movies, and like, that's like really cool. So I forgot about ET contact and started following this fairy path, and ended up on this round platform surrounded with purple blue flowers, the ones that were growing all over.
Sure.
You saw them. Well, they were in this pattern around the platform. So I stepped up into the platform, and immediately I started feeling electricity coming through my feet, but it was like a thick volt feeling up through the bottoms of my feet. I felt like I had just been like plugged into something. So I was turning, and I faced Mount Shasta, and basically was showered in this tube of light and sparkles and like shiny liquid glass, almost to the point where I couldn't see the forest anymore. Picture a vertical tube laid right over the top of me. And at that point, that's when I looked up, and about 20, 30 feet up, the beings appeared, and they were of the ones that people keep seeing, the long white hair and a white beard, white gowns. I assumed the White Brotherhood. And then usually when I have contact, it's always telepathically. This was not telepathic. It was incredible. It was like his actual voice, so much so that I could hear an accent in his voice. Sure. But even though he was speaking English, I've never heard that accent before. So my first reality check was when I saw them appear and start talking. There was like, I was startled. And you know how sometimes, I don't know if you've had an experience where you see something scary and you feel this rush going over you? Right. That's what I felt. But it was instantly taken away when I tuned in with my heart and could feel the love and the caring from them. So you can't be afraid of that. I mean, it was real. I could feel it. And then they gave me some messages about next year's event, how it could play out. And they told me something very personal about a member of my family, which brought me to tears. And so he stopped talking, and he just paused and waited for me to collect myself. Like he would never talk if I was tearing up. He'd wait till I behaved and, collected myself. And he also told me how I could use my heart chakra as, in computer terms, a hub, a communication hub, receiving and sending, and how I could communicate and be with them anytime I wanted with the
Sure.
heart communicator.
Wow.
So that was.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell the story again. So, because you have to tell the story of Maddie as well. We haven't heard that story, but I just want to make sure that Desta is here. Desta, can you come on for a second just to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Hi, sorry, I was in the shower.
I told him that. So
I couldn't figure out the link. I had 3 links and I pressed the wrong one, so I was a couple minutes late. But I can edit this. Right when you said the cesium crystals, I heard it, but I didn't start recording until right after that, so I don't know what I missed.
okay,
You don't
I'll
have
get her to
tell
quickly
that story, I can edit it.
I'll get her to quickly tell the story again because it's kind of major. There's a second part to it. So, so you're the host. Everything's going well for the taping. It'll be okay, no problem.
Yeah, and I have the right view. But yeah, she won't have to say the whole story again, just up until the cesium crystals, but I didn't get the cesium crystals part. But I can edit it and put like the next chunk at the beginning, and then if you think there's a part 2 to the story, I can put that at the end. I can do whatever you want.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, and just for people's, Mark has met Desta, but for Ray, this is my assistant Desta, and she just came back from an event in Spain on a mountain there. So she knows what we're talking about, and she was with me 2 years ago when we were at the Mount Shasta when we had the event take place. Well, you people were over across the other side of the road. So we saw you, Enrique's people, and we had our event, and that's when you had the event with the tall beings and the 908 thing. So just for so everybody knows who Desta is. Okay.
Okay, I'll shut up here and do whatever you want, and I'll edit it after.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Tonight, have a special guest. Tonight, whenever morning it's here in the afternoon. I just came back from Mount Shasta from an Enrique Villanueva event, contact event, C5, Rama event, whatever you want to call it. And one of the more interesting people I met there was Ray Dove, who is co-host of a show called the Pete and Ray Pathways Show, which is we'll put a link. I'll get Desta to put a link in the notes for this, so you can go to the show. And I wanted to get a number of people because I'm documenting the events that occurred on the weekend, and there was actually quite a few. I didn't really think anything was going on, and after the Saturday morning exercise torture that we were put through, I was ready to pack it in. I thought this was kind of an ugly event to be going to, but when people started telling stories Saturday morning and then Sunday morning, we heard stuff. I was just sort of really shocked at how many people had experiences. So Ray Dove has joined us, and she has a number of events, and she actually recorded the events from last year. So she's been around a while, and so I want to welcome Ray to and say that I'm very honored to have you come on and share your experiences that you've had, and share your knowledge of this contact experienced with the a lot of the people who are on my channel do watch this kind of contact stuff. So I appreciate your being on.
Well, I am honored to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yes, wonderful. Let's basically start with how you got involved. So I understand you've been involved for quite a few years, but give me a background in how you got into this contact UFO type stuff.
Okay, well, like many people that are experiencers, there's stuff that goes on throughout your life sometimes from childhood on up. And there was just little things here and there, like being attracted to Lost in Space and Star Trek, having an experience when my 3-year-old brother, and I was probably about 11 or 12, had seen a saucer. And then not much went on after that. I didn't even think about the UFOs or ETs, although I was attracted to the technology and like those shows, like I said. But then just 5 years ago, I was very, very sick for 3 months. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't eat. I would vomit. It hurt like heck. I had every test you can think of. And I got to a point where the doctor finally said, all I know what to do is to put you in the hospital on a feeding tube. And I had a, let's say, religious/spiritual background. So I knew I didn't want to go to the hospital because if I did, I would never leave it. and I was dying, literally. I'm 5'5", and I was under 100 pounds. I had lost almost 25 pounds from not being able to eat. And so I said a prayer. I gave myself over to God's will, as you would say, and said, I'm surrendering to whatever you think is best. I need help. I'm not giving up, but I don't know what else to do. And I got this deep peace, and I fell asleep. And I woke up on a spaceship. And I opened up and when I woke up, I kind of saw these lights above me, and I thought, oh, I'm in surgery and I'm just waking up. But then reality set in, and I'm go, wait, I wasn't scheduled for surgery. What's going on? Because I've had surgeries before. And then I realized that there was two people that were not humans. One had a cylinder that was silver, and he was passing it back and forth across my stomach. And I tried to get up, and I started to panic, and I could almost feel their telepathic communications with each other. And the person behind me somehow put his hand behind my back, the back of my head, and I fell back asleep again. And then I woke up, and I heard some more telepathic communication going on, some instructions that they were telepathically saying to the person behind me. And then I was put back asleep again. And I don't know when, but I woke up being dropped back onto my bed from, I don't know, it was 2 inches up. I just suddenly woke up because I was being dropped. And I was dropped on my back, and the blanket was not covering my feet, which is not how I sleep. I sleep like in a little ball at that time. And then I heard the words, stay off your feet a few days. That's what I heard. So I finally woke up around 11 o'clock in the morning, which is a late time for me. And I felt a twinge of pain in my side. And I looked down, and there was a surgery scar that was gold. I started going, oh my gosh, it was real. So I took pictures of the surgery scar, which ended up disappearing 3 days later. And after that, I could eat anything I wanted, no pain. I was literally cured. And that's what started it, my interest in UFOs and ETs.
Wow, that's fascinating, because I'm just doing a book called Contact Modalities, and I go into that kind of thing about a lot of times trauma is what initiates contact. You have to go through this trauma, whether it's a car accident, or as I was talking to this woman last night, you have a situation with bipolar, or it sort of pops you into the field. So that's fascinating. It fits right in with the pattern. So talking to you and going over your email, I noticed you have a lot of stories. So I want to make sure that I get all this in, because we've only got like 45 minutes. So let's go to.
And I think you have the rest on tape, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned the even though it was sort of related to with this orange ball of light thing, where it ties into what happened up on the mountain.
So one of the things that I'm able to do for some reason, and I probably might even have to do with the crystals as well, is I'm able to listen to people and see that each person having an experience is a piece of the whole puzzle. And listening to people, I started to notice that there was this orange ball of light thing, and I don't have the exact notes in front of me, but I will try to remember all of them just quickly, is Maddie. Before Maddie came to Shasta, she received a telepathic communication to look for the ball of orange light. And then that was it. Then that night, I believe it was Saturday night, that everybody was up at that we broke into two groups, and the group with Enrique went up the mountain. Maddie was one of the ones that was left in camp with me and the others, and you were there too. Yeah. And Maddie was walking around at one point, and she kept going by me. I'm like, what is she saying? What is she talking about? She was talking about, I have to find the orange ball of light. I have to find this orange ball of light. And I'm like, okay, I don't see one. And meanwhile, up on the mountain, Vahid was having an experience where he climbed the mountain with another person. and they found this misty area, which he reached his hands into the misty area, received a spark of electricity on one hand, and there was the witness was with him. And then he felt a spark here, and this orange ball of light forms on his hand. And that was his experience. The following day on Sunday, and then the experiences were told on Sunday the next morning, and Maddie was listening to the experiences of the orange ball of light, but I guess she hadn't made a connection that maybe that was it.
Yeah.
So at one point I was standing with Fahid, and almost everybody had left camp, and all of a sudden Maddie comes running up, suddenly realizing that the orange ball of light was the one in Fahid's hand. It was that ball of light. So she runs up to him, grabs him, and says, "I need to hold the hand with the orange ball of light." And Vahid's like, okay. And so she held his hand, and the strangest thing, and I believe Kim and Marcel were standing there too. She just went into this, she straightened out, and later she said her feet plugged in like mine did with electricity. She got straight, her eyes got big, and Vahid's eyes got big, and she's holding his hand, and tears are streaming down her eyes. She's smiling. She's in a complete trance. And at one point I was so concerned about her because of all these tears that I was going to, give her a hug or something. But then my intuition said, no, don't touch her right now. Something's happening. So what happened ultimately was she received the orange ball of light that she was told to find, and it ended up being a data transfer.
Wow.
And a download went into her head, and her data transfer was almost the exact message that I received in my 2 hours later in my experience out in the forest. Only hers sounds like it was more detailed than mine, but same message.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, it is true. And you even had your partner, Pete, I believe it was on the Friday night, they had almost like a possible Zendra, where Cameron was describing it, and Pete didn't want to get out of his sleeping bag, and then when Enrique hears it, he sort of flips out, like, "Why didn't you tell me?" It's like when they have the shimmering on the ground, and this is the two objects, and it was very reminiscent of the formation of a Zendra. So it is true that you had all these people's events, but and hopefully we can get to interview Maddie and Jeff and Fahid and all these people, because this is a very complex story to put it all together. It seems like really nothing's happening until you hear all the stories and you realize like all these people are linked together.
Yes.
It's fascinating. So we're coming sort of near the end. So let me ask you about two things. Let me ask you first, what do you think is the message? What do we take from this? Because there's a lot of sort of stuff there. Like, as you mentioned, it gets very, very cold. So to warn people that when you go there, make sure you take 2 layers of clothes. It's very hot during the day, but it's very, very cold at night. And once you get cold, it's very hard to sleep. And it's very dark. That's the other thing I warn people about, is you need a light, because people think, there's people on the mountain moving around, because as you know, there was this event at 4 o'clock in the morning with all these lights on the mountain, that people do not walk around in the dark. I mean, it's very dangerous. I mean, even to try to move to get to your tent, you could kill yourself walking in the bush, because there's no light at all. It's completely dark. So in terms of that, what do you think is all the sort of the drawbacks that in terms of going and doing this kind of thing? There's very positives in terms of message. What do you think is the ultimate message that we are to take from these C5 experiences, from your lifetime of experiences? What is the intelligence trying to tell us?
The question I would ask is, why are they here?
Yeah.
Why are these benevolent beings here helping us, giving us these experiences? And the reason I believe they are here is to help humanity. And that is what the Rama mission is all about, is it's a mission for humanity and the planet. So I believe all of these benevolent beings are here to help this planet, to help us, to help humanity. And they're not going to do it all for us. So they're going to give us experiences so that we can learn to help ourselves.
Do you believe you're part of the mission? Do you believe you have a role, say, before birth that you came in to help with this mission, that you're part of, you are them, they are you, we are all one, this sort of thing where you have a mission in life to do this? Or do you think it's accidental that you sort of get dragged into this?
There are no accidents. For nobody, there are no accidents. There are no coincidences. Everything leads to something. As far as if I feel like I'm part of the mission, I feel like I had a choice at one point that through my experiences, I could choose to be of service and help others with my own experiences by sharing, or I could just stay within my own household, do my own thing, become a monk in a cave, whatever. But so I had that choice, and either choice would have been fine, because even if you're not directly involved, if your vibration is high, you're still helping the world because you're affecting people around you. So my choice was to be a part of the mission. Have me.
You mentioned benevolent beings. How do you respond to people? There's lots of people run around and say that there are bad ones that are influencing the world. How do you respond to those people?
I can only go by my own experiences. I did have one experience where two or three grays woke me up one night, and they paralyzed me, and that frightened the heck out of me because I had lost ability to move. But then I just prayed and I asked them to leave, and they left immediately. So the experience was neutral. I don't know what they were there for. They should not have paralyzed me. I mean, it's me. No one does that to me, you know.
Yeah,
But I can only go.
fear.
I can only go by my own experience. I've never ever had a negative experience, and I do believe that as long as you keep your vibration high, you're going to attract higher beings.
Yeah.
You have. Yeah, go ahead.
Excellent point. No, you keep every time you say something, you raise another question. I forgot what the question was. Oh no, how many? So you've in all your time, how many different types of beings do you think that you've talked to, interacted with, or whatever? Because when you hear people talk, they just talk about the grays, but it sounds like you've interacted with quite a few different types of beings.
Yes, and I've painted pictures of most of them.
Oh
Yeah,
wow!
so yes, I will have to show them to you sometime.
Yes, we'll have to do even if you send me a couple of links. Last question. I want to get into your show. You did a show with Pete, who's a very, very funny guy. I mean, he brought a lot of levity to a lot of the stuff that was going on there. Give me a little background on your show that you do with Pete, how you met him, and where you're from. I think you're from the sort of the best climate in the world there, and the CE5s that happen there. So talk a little bit about your show, what you're trying to do, and how you got the whole thing going with Pete.
I met Pete the very first year that I was in Shasta with Enrique, the English-speaking Rama workshop, which was 4 years ago. That's when I met him at that workshop. We ended up deciding to try a show together to try and get the information out there. I'm from Southern California, and Pete is as well. Pete is from CE5 San Diego. I'm about 3 hours from Pete. We decided to do this show to help get the information out there, and also to dispel the stereotypical reaction with many people because of the way they were raised with television and all these computer games, is that it's all about alien invasions. There's a lot of fright out there. Well, that's not experiences have ever been like that, and studies show that that's not true. So we wanted to get to give that information along with ET contact and consciousness, which is important. We wanted to put the information out there in a fun, entertaining way. Mostly for those that have not had experiences before. It's kind of a beginner approach, something more palatable, because consciousness can be very serious and technical. And what I like to do is to simplify and make it fun. And you're still learning the same thing. And also, with any consciousness and raising your vibration, happiness and joy raises it naturally anyway. So why not make it an entertaining format?
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. For people who want to contact you or have questions, or we'll put a link for your show, the Ray and Pete Pathways show. But for people who might want to contact you for questions, do you take questions from people, or have you got a contact or a website or whatever?
Oh, sure. You can find me on Facebook, Ray Dove, and you can message me, or you can even drop me an email if you like.
Beautiful. And there's a Shasta, I just was linked into it, a Shasta Facebook page as well, right? Is that an open site?
Yeah, each year Enrique has another Facebook page for the event of the year, and I believe okay. So you can even go to that site.
Yeah. Okay, I want to thank you for your expertise and your wisdom.